Oh, really?
Oh, okay, 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 cool, cool, cool.
Full screen, full screen. How do I full screen? The F11? No, okay. I think you should stop the stream first. There's gonna be an awkward, yeah, like period where nothing happens. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my name is Hanif. I'm a software developer at Globalize. Here we use Rust for the backend and React for the front end. It's a pretty new company, so it's pretty challenging since I have to work with basically from zero. But yeah, anyways, since this is the first time I'm been using Rust for work, so I thought it might be interesting to share my experience using it. So yeah, like I said, like Ivan said, I'm using Rust and axum at work. So if you are here, you're probably already aware of what Rust is and what it offers, and you probably have some experience with it already. But anyways, I have to put this here just for completeness sake. So if you Google Rust, you're probably gonna come up with the game. But if you add in RustLang, you're gonna come up with a website. And from the website page, it says that Rust. Why you should consider Rust, right? And it provides three reason why. The first is performance. Since Rust is compiled to, it's a compiled language, so it can offer more reliable performance compared to something like Node.js, Go. It also doesn't have any GC and all that. So yeah, if you can tune your software as much as you want to get the exact performance that you want. It's also very reliable. Well, the first thing is Rust is probably one of the most well. There are already languages like Rust, like Scala, Haskell, but those languages are pretty esoteric in my opinion. They don't. I don't think they are trying to accommodate for as many people. For us, I mean, I don't think they're trying to reach a wide audience. Like I don't think Haskell is trying to get the average folk to write Haskell, right? But Rust is different. Rust, even though Rust have this high level concepts like type classes, generics, lifetimes, but it's if you're writing Rust, still feels familiar. If you're from the C type language like JavaScript, TypeScript, Go, so you're already familiar with those kind of languages, right? So um, yeah, it's reliable in the sense that the type system will guide you as you program. So you can represent with a powerful type system. You can represent ideas that you otherwise cannot represent in things like JavaScript, even Go because it doesn't have enum. It doesn't have a powerful enum. So yeah, that's pretty. I think it's pretty great. It's also it's very quite productive because it's actually very reliable. So once you write something, in my experience, once you write something and it compiles, you very rarely go back to that code because you have for the first time you are already having to properly represent what you are trying to do. So you already debug while you're writing the code for the first time. You're already seeing all the flaws that you might see later on, right? Especially in my previous experience is using Node.js, and we use TypeScript, but TypeScript is not powerful enough to, in my experience, convey some ideas like nullability, ideas like enums, right? So you end up, well, even though you write fast, you also break things fast as well, right? So if you forgot to check for null values, you get a null reference error or something in production. That's gonna be pretty bad. Yeah. So in that regard, it's really productive. But even my talk is not going to be very flowery. For I mean, I'm just basically I'm going to be real, right? Rust is not the perfect language, as you will see later on. But yeah, in that sense, it is productive. But we'll see later on why Rust is still not mature enough, in my opinion. For if yeah, there are certain things that need to happen first before you can consider Rust. But we'll see. So yeah, for the framework, for the web service framework, I'm using Axum. This is actually not my choice. It's just the choice of my engineering lead in the company. But it is pretty good because of the things mentioned here. The first thing is most other frameworks are maintained by a single developer. As far as I know, Rocket is basically maintained by one developer. Even though there are contributors, it's open source and everything, but most of the contribution is coming from a single person, right? So if that person is suddenly not interested anymore, or I don't know, something bad happened to him, the project is not going to be maintained, or someone has to pick up, right? And then there's going to be forks, and then there's like issues there. But Axum is maintained by Tokyo, which is a really popular, probably the most popular async library in Rust. So it's less likely to be left out. Um, and since it's based on Tokyo, Tokyo is very popular. You're also unlikely to come across async issues because Rust does not provide async, does only provide basic async functionalities. There are multiple async frameworks out there, and they are not compatible with each other. But Tokyo is one of the most popular ones, so most crates will cater to that. But I haven't came across this issue yet because I have not gone that low level yet. So I've not seen I don't even know what's the difference between all the other async ecosystems in Rust. So yeah, in my experience, that hasn't been an issue, but you might come across it if you go low level enough. There are some boilerplate that you have to write. I have a small code here. So yeah, so this is the main function here. It's similar to most web frameworks. So you have a path that you assign to the server, and then you execute the server after on. So in that sense, it's very similar. But the different thing is, um, in other language, I think you just need to return something, and then the framework is going to figure out for yourself. Here it's also similar, but because it has to be compiled, so you can't just I don't know, return whatever. You need to return something that makes sense. In this case, the handler here requires that you return something that implements into response. So as long as whatever that you return implement into response, you can return that. Actually, where did my changes go? What? Oh, sorry, this not. Actually here. Readme. Okay. So yeah, the first thing, yeah, so static string implements um, into response, so you can return that. You can also return any. You can also return a status code and then the payload. In this case, the user here is just a struct, but there are many different kinds of payload, right? I'm sorry, I don't know. DDTO, it can be, I don't know, form, a binary form or something. But in this case, we tell axum to return a JSON, and it's going to handle all the headers, HTTP headers, and all that. All the sizes of the file and everything is going to be handled by axum. Um, you can also you can also uh, get queries from the request like this, and it's going to uh, since this implement it uses Serde, so it's going to automatically perform all the validation for you. So that's pretty nice. So you don't have to write in Node.js. You have to write a validator. I forgot what it's called. I think validator JS something, and it requires a lot of manual work. And there it's pretty error prone in my opinion. But with this Serde, you can be sure that the thing that you are getting is actually a string, right? So that's pretty nice. You can also get a path like this. I think this is pretty similar in other. Sorry, doesn't do what? No, sorry. I mean, it does validation in the sense that the things that you are getting is a string, right? So in if I perform a curl in this website, right, I'm going to in the body raw data or something. I can send whatever I want, right? And in Node.js, if you send this value, it still works. I mean, it still compile. It doesn't even compile, right? So you are going to get a runtime error, but but it's you should send something like this. But Rust is since compile and yesterday like it has serialization and deserialization actually will actually fail if you return something that doesn't make sense. So you automatically get validation, but yeah, actually you can implement validation because if you have something like a ULIT or UUID, so the serializer and the deserializer of this type is going to perform the validation for you. So yeah, that's pretty nice. So if you have a stricted like a string, but the string can represent something else, you can actually perform the validation like automatically. So that's oh oh yeah yeah. I think it should be possible. Oh yeah yeah. I think it should be possible. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah, I haven't come across that yet, but it should be possible to annotate that with Serde, something like that. Yeah, yeah. You can also use custom destination. But yeah, yeah, validation at least in the first level, you are sure that the things that you're getting is the thing that you're getting, which is already nice enough in my opinion. But yeah, if you want that kind of validation, you can actually just implement the sorry implement from response. I think sorry from response for create user or something like this, and then yeah you're going to implement the validator in here, But yeah, it still requires some boilerplate work. Yeah, but yeah. So that's yeah, and this is basically what Axum provides, and then you can write your backend using whatever SQLX or whatever. Um, yeah. Yeah. Another thing is since as you can see here, there is not that many activity in Axum. So uh, there's not that many. There's no large community out there that's using Axum. I don't know if it's, at least I cannot find any of them. So maybe they're hiding somewhere or something. But as far as I know, as far in my experience, getting help on Axum specifically is pretty hard. You basically have to go to the maintainers and get put them to see if they can help you with your issues. So that's pretty bad. The last thing here, I think if, since you are writing a backend, right, you are going to communicate with your front end. That's so one communication that I find very um, uh, powerful and easy is Open API. So basically, Swagger, I think is another name for it. So Axum does not have the ability to generate Swagger files automatically yet. There are there are um, there is a library for it, but it only works for Rocket, and the work for Axum is not implemented yet. So yeah, so there's going to be some friction between you and your front devs because you're going to, unless you're full stack, yeah, right. But if you are only a backend, then you're going to write documentation for the front end. So yeah, that's Axum. For the obviously, if you're writing a web server, you're going to have some database or something to store your data. For that, I use SQLX. This choice is also pretty arbitrary, to be honest. In the beginning, we had to choose between this or Diesel. Diesel, unfortunately, Diesel does not support axing yet, and we are looking. We wanted to something axing, so we resort to SQLX. SQLX is also pretty nice. You can perform compile time checks on your SQL queries. So if you can see the query here on the bottom right, uh, I think at build time, SQLX is going to connect to your database if you provide a database URL, the database underscore URL environment in during the build time, right? It's going to connect to your database, get some metadata from your database, perform some, I don't know, some compile time checks, and then if there is a mismatch, it's going to throw compile time error. So yeah, you cannot, even though you're writing a raw string, a raw SQL string, you're not going to make a mistake because I don't know, it's raw string, right? So it's already, so it's an alternative to ORM, which Diesel is an ORM, right? So yeah, so it already feels like an ORM, but I think it's better because you're not using the bespoke DSL that your ORM is using. You're using SQL, which everyone is familiar with. But yeah, since it's compile time, you are going to introduce compile time overhead. So your development cycle might be affected. But in my experience, it's not as bad if you're using a simple queries. And it also the compile time itself does not work for if you use very complex. Like if you join multiple table, I think the chat is gonna get confused. But yeah, my at least in my place, what we do is we write for anything complex. We write those queries as a view, and then we write base some simple SQL queries in our code. Yeah, that helps removing a lot of the compile time issues. Oh yeah, database views. I think most database support this, like create view. Sorry, annotate, annotate what? Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it still needs to the type that you are trying to get from SQL needs to implement conversion from the SQL types into your type, right? I think for some things it doesn't support that. So this is my experience. For example, we you lead for as our primary key, and even though ULIT is convertible from UUID, which SQL support, which PSQL support, but SQL gets confused because it doesn't know that ULIT is equivalent to UUID. So yeah, at least in that case, compile time check is going to get confused as well. So it's not perfect, right? So yeah.
Bisa, Yom.
Yeah. Um, at least maybe because I'm used to writing Node.js, which does not really have any compile time, so the cycle there is much quicker. But the worst that I've got is I don't know, maybe 1 minute, 2 minute, which is already uh no to build. But to cargo check, I think it takes 30 seconds. I use cargo watch check, so it's compiling all the time. So I mean, it's 30 seconds, something like that. But yeah, like I said, it's pretty bad. Especially if you are trying to iterate quickly. So yeah, you're gonna have to be careful. Um,
Yom.
yeah, the compile time check the SQL returns. Yeah, sorry, the compile time check errors that SQL return is pretty helpful in my opinion. At least when it get confused, it automatically defaults to PG query type. So you know that it's confused, but actually it doesn't tell why it's confused. That's the bad thing, I guess. It just says, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm returning something default," and you have to figure out what's wrong. Right? So it's not nice, I guess. Yeah, but the compile time check is pretty bad, and my code base is pretty small now. I've only been doing this for 2 months, 3 months, something like that, and it's already this bad. I cannot imagine if the code base grows every more and more microservices added on top of it. Might be a lot worse. Um, yeah, another thing, you're going to need a pretty good a beefy computer because uh, uh, at least my code base requires 16 gig, especially when it's trying to compile, and especially because I have a 16 core CPU, so it's going to spawn a bunch of thread, and it takes a lot of memory. You can reduce the memory usage if you reduce the number of thread that it can spawn, but yeah, and then you get slower compile time, right? So yeah, another create. especially if you're writing a web service, you're going to need um, you're going to use the libraries if you're going to do extracting data from PDF, Excel, or connecting with SAP. You don't want to write all of this by yourself, right? That's going to be an insane endeavor. So you're going to rely on libraries that other people write. But unfortunately, since Rust is not as mature relatively compared to other languages like Node.js or which is JavaScript based or Python, you're going to have you're going to find you're never going to find a perfect library. So you have to decide on one, and then if the library does not provide you with the things that you need, you're going to have to implement them yourself. And I already have to do that a couple of times with Excel, especially. And then, yeah, sorry. No. There's already a Excel library, but it it's not complete, right? So because it's pretty new, and Excel is a pretty big file format, so not everything is implemented, and you're going to have to implement some of them yourself. So you're basically going to have to contribute to the library, and then if the author is not responsive, then you're going to have to fork them or copy the file and then paste into your and then track them in your project. Right. No. You have to. In my code base, we use a cargo workspace. So each microservice is a workspace, and then if you, in my case, I have to copy the Excel library. So I add the Excel crate as a workspace, and I track, and it's like I have to track all the code and everything. Yeah, I created a merge request, but they are not responsive. Like so, I mean, what can you do? You're gonna have to have a local fork, or you can publish your fork. But then what's the point? You might as well just copy. So, yeah, I obviously use. Let me see. I actually cannot share sharing. I obviously use other libraries like Ulit. I think what other things do I use? Oh no! I haven't done that yet. I suppose that's possible. Yeah, we haven't. At least at least so far the features that I need is implementable. Right, it's not some weird thing that Excel does that I don't know about. So far, at least so far I can fix them. But maybe in the future when you are having, I don't know, you need some strict requirement and the Rust library is simply not there yet. Yeah, you probably have to resort to those kind of solutions. And I mean, and since you are working in a microservice, you need probably have to create another microservice that is based on other language as a sort of a proxy between the user and your backend, the actual backend, right? So something like that is possible as well. But yeah, you're not going to since there is not that large community out there, so you are going to be at the frontier of Rust web development. So sometimes you're going to stumble across something that well, maybe someone have come across it, but maybe they haven't published the fixes or something like that, so you have to fix them yourself. Yeah, so you have to be aware of that. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all I have to say. But yeah, as a conclusion, to be honest, if you cannot find, if you don't already have a team of developer that is experienced in Rust, so you already have that talent in your repository, I don't think you should use Rust. We have a new programmer that never used Rust before. They were experienced in C Sharp. Even though the transition to Rust is not that bad, because it's I mean any language is not that different, but still you have to they have to go through, I think, pretty new concepts like traits and lifetimes and the different type of string, for example, like what's the difference between a reference to a string and a reference to a static string, a reference to a string, this capital S, right, and all that. So it might get confusing for them. So you're going to have to deal with that, or you have to try somehow to find a Rust developer that has not been pushed by other people yet. Because my experience, if very experienced Rust developers are probably already working for some, you know, because they are pretty rare, they're already working for some high paying job, right, somewhere. So yeah, you're going to have trouble finding them. Yeah, I've mentioned this before, since there's not that many people using Rust in the first place, so it might be hard to get help. Yeah, the ecosystem is pretty young, so you're going to have to put some work yourself. Yeah, and the point four is basically the same thing. Yeah, another thing, I think that every time, this is just my sort of what is it called, nitpick, or whatever. Every time people mention Rust, people, even Rust developer themselves always mention, oh, lifetime is a hard. Oh, if you use Rust, oh, you're going to have issue with lifetime. I don't think lifetime is actually an issue, because for the most part, cloning is perfectly fine. Because like if you're ever confused with your lifetime, you just clone the thing, right, and then go your way. Because most of the time, like performance, unless you have a strict performance requirement, performance is not a problem, right? At least in my experience. Yeah, that's just something that I wanted to say. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, this talk is a bit rambly because I wasn't really prepared. I was pretty busy this couple of weeks, so I prepared this like today. So if you have any questions, yeah, go ahead. Because I'm also not. I've only been working writing web services for 1.5 years, so I'm not that experienced in writing web services in the first place. So I'm curious to know what's your opinion. What do you look for in Rust as a web developer and all that? Yeah. So feel free to ask a question. Yeah, yeah. I already bought the book, but I haven't had time to read it. I already skimmed through it, but I haven't completed it. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Well, debug. I don't think, maybe because I'm already been writing Rust for a while. I don't think Rust itself is a problem. It's just the problem so far is not Rust related. It's mostly whatever the changing requirement, the usual web development issues. Yeah, so far, at least in my experience, personal experience, Rust itself is not has not been a problem. But yeah, designing the data, because my company is really new. Designing the database, designing the uh, I don't know. Yeah, but mainly the database is the hard part. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Uh, SQL supports migration. Sorry, it should be Rust. Yeah, you can perform migration with. So yeah, we use this in at work as well. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's a. I guess I can open. yeah, there is a CLI tool. So if you want to create another migration file, add, yeah. So yeah, at least there's that. Yeah, that's pretty helpful because in the beginning, we actually, I didn't know this existed. So what, what we did before is every time we modify the database, we dump the database as a large SQL file, and then we track that, which is pretty ridiculous. And on hindsight, it's not, that's not maintainable at all. And where is it? Yeah. Yeah, we every time we edit database, we like perform a SQL dump or something, and then copy paste the dump, paste into our project, and then track the changes. Yeah, it's pretty silly. No, I mean not the database, actual database, just the schema, not the actual data. Yeah, yeah, because yeah, it's pretty bad. Uh, mm, uh, yeah. I have not used. I actually we had some issues with because Tokyo. Sorry. We yeah. Whenever there's a panic, was there a panic? I think there was. It's not a panic. It's not an error, but it propagates up to the handler, and then you get a 500 response, right? But the debugging experience is pretty bad actually uh, because the error bubble up. You want the error to bubble up to the handler, right? Instead of panicking, because if it panics, then the entire server is going to get polluted. The this the thread worker or something is going to get polluted. So you're going to have to restart the server. So you want every error to bubble up to the handler, but then um, you're going to have then you don't have a stack trace, right? You don't have a stack trace, so you have to figure out the error from the response that you get. One solution is to monitor your server using a Tokyo console, but no, actually I tried to use it, but we actually don't run our web server directly. We run it inside a Dapper, I don't know, Dapper framework. It's like a sidecar to your application. So this is your app. This is my Rust server, and this is the Dapper application that is talking to my Rust server, and then everything else is talking to Dapper. Yeah, it's to make the whole point of Dapper is to make deployment easier, and there's also some things that it provide like telemetry and all that, observability, and then it also make connecting to other microservices easier. Uh, stuff like PubSub, secret management, and all that. Yeah, but then the problem is that you're not running the app directly, and yeah, as maybe there's a way to figure that one out, but yeah, Tokyo console has not been working for me. Yeah, so that's pretty unfortunate. Um, yes, and yeah, and we had to resort to basically logging a bunch of things. So yeah, it's back to print debugging, I guess. Yeah, logging lah, but I mean it's basically print lah. You go a lot to lot. Yeah. And then we have a no, yeah. Is there a difference? Oh, so you're going to get a track, like something like a stack trace? Or no? Oh, so you know exactly where that happened, or on something structure logging. I, I don't know. Okay. Oh, instead of getting like this, you get something like this. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll look into it. Yeah, thanks.
I think the main thing is that for a log you just have just one entry like that, but for tracing you have like spans, so it's like kind of like events kind of thing.
Okay. Rust, what is it called? Tracing? Rust tracing? Okay. Yeah, I have to finish that book sooner or later at some point. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Talk about testing. We at least in my place, testing web services is pretty hard in Rust. I think you basically have to write raw um, HTTP request using something like request, and then make the call, and then um, get your result, perform some assertion there. Uh,
You mean like Postman?
Rust Postman. I don't know. Postman collection. No. Yeah. Postman. So is it specifically for Rust, or what? Or is it something like plain text? What the hell? Wait, what? Um, insomnia. I know insomnia Postman. This is the kind of open source lah, but HURL. Oh no. Upper. Okay. Her run plain text. Huh? Oh, basically like a script lah, like a script, and then it's going to execute this thing. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, no, no. Actually, that's another one way of doing it. But then, at least I think that's very quite pretty hard to write. In our place, what I did was instead I write. So I write the the server in Rust, right, in the backend in Rust, and then for every endpoint that I create in the backend, I create the equivalent function query in Node.js library for the front end. Right. So the front end does not have to manually write the the query by reading the documentation and all that. The backend, in that case me, I'm going to write the front end library that maps the function in front end JavaScript to the backend, and then I write the test as a just test. Yeah, the backend does not have a test suite. No. I think it's a lot easier this way. And I do a full what is it called, end-to-end testing, like create an account, then try to log in, try to change the account details, try to do all that. So yeah, using the front end library. So this first of all, it removes the work of the front end dev from having to read the documentation on the back end, figure out what the endpoint needs, right? What the endpoint returns. The backend dev is going to maintain those. Second of all, yeah, at the end of the day, what matters is that the front end works, right? At least, I mean, at least for a company, I mean, as long as the website is working, it is fine for them, right? So yeah, I think it's kills two birds with one stone, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, I think it's going to be pretty hard to write a test for this for the backend. Yeah. Also testing the front end as well. Yeah. Because in the beginning they write the endpoint by themselves, in the front end, right? And there's going to be some mismatch. Like they thought that this thing is optional, or it's actually not. Or I update the return the response, and they forgot to update the response in the front end. So yeah, so I decided I'm going to do that for them, since so the front end uses Axios. So what I do is I create a bunch of function that maps, each function maps to a query, to a backend query. So every query, for the API. So for every API in the backend, there's going to be a function. So they don't have to read the documentation, like, and then keep up with the backend. At this point, there's no documentation. The only documentation, quote unquote, documentation that we have is a Postman. But Postman cannot convey optional, right? I don't think so. You have to add comment like, oh, this, by the way, this is optional. Even then, Postman also cannot convey the response. right? So even if Postman is able to convey that, they still have to manually transcribe the Postman doc into the TypeScript code, which is, I mean, that's double the work. I have to write documentation, and then they have to convert the documentation back into TypeScript. Why not just write the TypeScript directly? I think that's better. Yeah, I'm curious to know what you guys do with Rust. I have some project myself. It's not web related. It can be anything, but yeah, it doesn't have to be web related. If it's web related, then sure. Most painful thing, I think if I'm going to do it alone, I don't think I'm going to do it uh, because yeah, it's a lot of work, and especially right now. Sorry, I'm going to sleep. Especially right now, in my company, there's only two engineers, me and the other guy, and then there's an engineer lead. He doesn't really program. He's mostly like most. It's like a CTO. Yeah, it's actually a CTO. So it's not doesn't really go down writing Rust with us. So there's only two of us. Yeah. The CTO know how to code. I'm sure he knows to code, but he's busy with CTO stuff, right? So there's only two programmer in the backend, and the other programmer. Yeah, both of us are okay, Ross. Actually, the other guy is better than me, lah, but he's on leave because he got a hand injury. So right now, I'm the only backend developer. So yeah, it's a lot of stress, lah, especially when something like I said before. Oh, then the requirement says I have to parse Excel and then do something. And then okay, let me look up Excel library. Oh, okay, there's an Excel library, but it's not complete. But then I have to do it by myself. So the got pretty stressful in that sense. But I mean, yeah, because it's not mature enough. I think if there's like enough competent developer, let's say there's a 5 developer, right? I think I think it's easier that way lah, because I can communicate with them. One of them can work on the library stuff. But right now I have to do all of them by myself, right? Yeah, it doesn't. It's a lot of work. But yeah, but like I said, if you have a team of Rust developer, you should consider Rust because I think Rust have a bright future. I think. But if you don't already have the talents, then something like Go. If you want performance, right? I think the first thing that people use Rust think of Rust. Why use Rust? Performance. I don't think that matters unless you are like Google or something. I mean, for the most part, Go is already good enough, right? For 99% of web services, Go is good enough. So I think I would go with Go if I want performance. But if I want something maintainable, some not maintainable, something that people can easily pick up, I'll probably go for TypeScript or something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's not the best, but I mean, finding developer is hard enough. Finding a Rust developer is, I don't know. We actually are an international company. We're not limited to Asian. We are a remote company, but so we are international company, and we cannot find a developer, right? So if you are limited to local like Malaysia company, I don't know how you can find a talent. Yeah, like I don't know. Like I think it's hard, not impossible. you basically have to teach a new person to write Rust. I actually think so, yeah, because like I said, I rarely go back to the code that I wrote before because for the most part, unless it's a logic error, which happens, the code simply works, which is not the case in my experience in TypeScript because things can change. Like library got updated and then I updated an object or someone forgot to check a null value, but the type system got confused and then it passes the TypeScript check and then we had a production error and then someone has to roll back and do all that jank stuff. But so far, yeah, so far, and then you get 100 compile time error, but that's fine. You can fix them now, right? Instead of later when you're sleeping. Yeah, yeah. In that case, it's nice, lah. But yeah, to be honest, I don't think it's there. I wish, yeah, I don't know why. I wish TypeScript have better type support, but it doesn't. The type system there is pretty loose. It can easily break. I think maybe something like Scala is also have a good type system, but nobody uses it. I think it's even harder to find a Scala program. Or maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. No. Yeah. Is it wait, async calling async? Oh, is it? Is it that bad? I have never encountered an issue. I think. Yeah. I mean, I have some async code, but I don't. s- I think maybe yeah, I mix them, but maybe I'm working high level enough that I don't see those kind of issues. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, okay. Can you just block? Uh. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Reverse boss. Is it just for fun or for work? Oh, pretty cool. Your work you're using Rust lah. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. Bahral, I should start. I think yeah. To be honest, I don't have much experience in other. I mean, I know on cursory level. Basically, I read some blog or something like that. So yeah, I don't have like experience writing Rocket, but as you can see, there's not that many activity. I mean, the future is there. Oh, you mean like this? Yeah, yeah, it's really nice lah in my opinion. Um, I don't. I think. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I think there's a lot of boilerplate. I think that's one issue because I think for Jason it's simple, right? Jason, you can just do this. But for form data, it gets pretty bad because you have to because it doesn't have this serialization for that. You're going but it doesn't. I think it does not deserialize directly into your type, right? Or at least you have to write your own conversion from response. From a response, no request into your into your form into your struct from that form data. And I have a code for it. Cannot show it, but it's pretty gnarly. It's you have to work with the. Actually, I do have a problem. I had a problem with async trait. Because this thing is this thing async function and returns um, some a trait, right? So when I was implementing the conversion from the request into the form data, I encountered some issue with the async trait. I forgot what it was, but I couldn't fix it. So what did I do? But yeah, there's something about async trait that's not that's hard to deal with. Yeah, yeah. I think async trait is another issue in async, right? There is, yeah. I needed to use a trait. Sorry, a crate for it. Rust async trait. But yeah, it's pretty complicated, in my opinion. Something, yeah, something. I don't. Yeah. You need to annotate this, and then there's some caveat, like I don't know, like something. Yeah, but then you have to learn all of this. I don't even understand the most of it. They, yeah, there's no example. God damn it. I mean, it's what is it? I think it's pretty easy to use lah. It's not that bad. Yeah. Once I mean, this is all that you have to know mostly about Axum, and then the rest is just Rust code, right? I mean, so far I haven't encountered any issues yet. I mean, async calling, async sync stuff. But yeah, I think it doesn't. I don't think it gets in a way. So that's good enough for me. Yeah. Missing, like I said before, missing open API. I think it's pretty important actually, especially because the front end keep nagging to do this, but I don't want to manually thing. I'm gonna go crazy. Um, other than that, yeah, I'm not sure. Actually. Here, this open API is very good out. Yeah, if they implement this, I don't have anything to say. It's good enough for me. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, yeah, I think so lah. Yeah, I no, not for this, not for server. I think it's I don't know. I think it's pretty hard to use that. Yeah, but yeah, mm, I think yeah, um, we are pretty lacking on uh uh apa log apa uh like we don't have any because we just started the backend. We haven't it's not mature yet. It's not mature yet. So many sort of um helping tools is not there. Like we don't really have logging yet. We don't really have. I mean, no. We haven't integrated with like Amazon apa Amazon bucket something. What is it called? No. The specifically for logging stuff. Logging. CloudWatch, yeah, CloudWatch. Yeah, we don't have. I mean, you don't have time lah because they keep asking more feature, more feature. Uh, yeah, I mean, somewhere to store the log, right? So we can go back to it. I mean, whatever lah. But right now, I don't have time. I'm the only one working right now, so I don't have time to do this stuff. And what is it called? Sentry? AWS Sentry. Sentry. Oh, is it something that you install locally? No Rust support. No, there's no Rust lah. There Rust support. Ooh, oh, active web. Okay. Oh, nice. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like his blog. Faster. Getting. It's not this, right? This one. Sentry. I configured Sentry. Okay, there you go. Bruh, this is really complicated. Writing, yeah, writing blog is actually really tough, time consuming, but I don't know how this guy does it. Bruh, yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of things to read about. There's a lot of things to know. Yeah. Um. How do I stop stop streaming? Yeah. Yeah. That's all from me. Thanks, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
No, not really. But Sentry, yes, Sentry is hiring Rust dev. Not sure
Oh,
if they are taking applicants from other countries. I don't know.
yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.